Welcome back, everyone. Today's guest is Kyle Patel, president of BitLux. Kyle, could you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell the audience what you do?
Sure, Daniel. Yeah, my name's Kyle. I'm the president and founder of BitLux, the private jet company. We started in 2018. We are the leading provider that accepts cryptocurrency for private aviation, private charters, jet cards. We have a specialty focus in international long-range travel. So most of our aircraft are super midsize and above. The vast majority of our trips are super midsize and above, and about more than I want to say the number this last quarter was 62% of all of our travel is um, transoceanic or international, that they don't touch the United States, which I think is pretty cool.
Well, okay, so can you give us the one-liner? Which traveler use case does BitLux serve better than on-demand brokers or fractionals?
Say that
Daniel,
one more time.
better than on-demand brokers or fractionals.
So we do have on demand, and then
Mhm.
we also have a jet card, and the jet card, just for simplicity's sake, is a easy one-click solution to private aviation.
Mhm. How do your jet card guarantees work in real life? 48-hour access rate protections or blackouts?
Yes, so we don't have any blackout dates. We do have, depending on the time of the year, right? So we do have a peak season. So during those peak travel times, such as, right around the end of December, bleeding into January, 4th of July, there's other various holidays and major events that there would be a 5-day call out period as opposed to a 48-hour guaranteed availability period. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean you can't get an aircraft within 48 hours. It just means that we can't guarantee the rate in under that small amount of time. However, I can say that this entire year, there has not been a single instance where we weren't able to match or keep the guaranteed rate. The only thing that there was only one flight, as far as I know, and we haven't had a ton of them this year. We just launched the jet card this year, and I apologize. I've got notifications going off crazy. We just launched the jet card this year. We've had, I want to say, I think it's 54 flights. Out of that, seven of them were under 48 hours. And out of those, only one of them had the full surcharge assessed. So, like when it comes to the billing models, right? Like if you look at a lot of the card providers like Sentient, Magellan, or any major card provider, right? They have your base rate, they've got your taxi time, they've got your fuel surcharges and peak surcharges, right? And the thing is that a lot of that's just denoted by calendar. It's not actually denoted by reality. And
Mhm.
what we've done is that we just said, okay, well, I'll tell you what, instead of fixing the rates and guaranteeing that you're going to pay a surcharge every single time, what we're going to do is that we're just going to figure out whether we actually get charged a surcharge. And if we don't get a surcharge, neither do you. So, that's kind of it's a really good way to be able to hold the existing standard of the jet card market and still be able to improve expectations with our customers and then leave them with what winds up being excess hours on their card. So fuel surcharges, they range anywhere from 8 to 15%, depending on who your card provider is. Ours sits right around between 11, I think it 11 and 9%, like, of your total base rate. So
Mhm.
really, when customers purchase a 30-hour card, it's not surprising to see that their actual utilization is 32 hours, 32 to 33 hours.
Got you.
Mhm.
Help listeners choose. When is a jet card smarter than on-demand or fractional?
A jet card, well, a jet card, those are great questions, and I think a lot of that kind of comes down to the eye of the beholder, right? And it depends on what you prioritize. Let's say that you and I are sitting at a blackjack table, right? Like that's probably a
Mhm.
place where I shouldn't be sitting.
No.
I really like it when I win, you know?
Yeah.
I really like it when I win.
Mhm.
And, the on-demand charter market is a lot like that. It's where you can get a good feeling, you get this crazy deal, and you're like, all right, sweet. Like this is 20% less than whatever my jet card rate is. And then your next trip, there's no availability. and you're paying 30% more, right? So that you've got these huge swings, and really what it comes down to specifically with any kind of membership model is that people move or migrate to that based off of one thing alone, and that is decision fatigue. They're tired of the
Mm,
mechanicals. They're tired of having to go through quotes. They don't want to have to pick the airplanes. They don't want to have to go through the sales process every single time. And what happens too is like let's say that you're shopping two or three brokers. What winds up happening, and consumers don't realize this. I mean, sometimes they do. It depends on what kind of branch of business they're in, but you get these brokers that'll start competing against each other. And then it's just a race to the bottom, right? Because the underlying service of the actual aircraft and crew are probably the same person. And
mm,
if you've got a race to the bottom, you have to be wondering, and I always ask myself this too, of like, at what point can you beat someone up enough to where the service or product starts to get diminished based off of the value you thought you were going to get? So I
mm,
give you a great example. I need to build my back patio right now. If I go shopping a whole bunch of people, at what point am I going to beat them up? And then at what point are they going to say, you know what, we need to use a cheaper material. In order to get this guy's price, we're going to have to use a cheaper material.
mm,
And then they're going to say, well, you know what? We've already used the cheaper material. Now we can't use the spacers. Now we need to make sure that our best guys are on this other project. Right. So it's a real dangerous game that you play, especially when you've got safety involved being number one. And then if you've got this quality of service, like I don't care if you're spending 100,000, 200, $300,000. The point is that if you aren't paying for premium service on the front end, it's probably not going to happen on the back end. That's usually
mm,
the way that it works. And you know aviation just as well as I do. And a lot of people don't know aviation, but like margins are really slim. Like the entire industry runs on like 8%. So if you're beating someone up, you're like getting half the income, but you expect 100% of the effort. I don't think that's really fair. I try not to ask that of people,
mm.
but
Yeah,
some people they'll do it. They'll do it in hopes that, you might be able to get a better deal some the next time or referral business or this, that, the third. And we just figured out, you know what, just do a really good job for really good people and everything else just kind of flows.
awesome. So you rolled out an AI assistant that ingests calls, trainings, and into SOPs. What changed in training time, consistency, or client experience?
Yeah, so we actually did a study on this. We had a 12-week onboarding and training program for new hires in our on-demand sales department.
Mm,
Once we created the base levels and the beta versions of, well, at the time, right, she's called Bia now. But at the time I didn't know what we were making. I just knew the capabilities of the systems that we could build and how to integrate this into knowledge bases that I had already typed out through standard operating procedures, through transcribed videos, through quizzes, and through automated systems to help salespeople get onboarded and be prepared to become experts in the field. And that time that we had doing that manually was 12 to 16 weeks. So
wow.
let's say you get onboarded in January, you would probably be ready to go and be able to like, proficiently source, quote, and schedule airplanes by April. That was our baseline. We do have
Mm,
really high standards. A lot of charter outfits are like, okay, cool, here's a phone, here's a laptop, go for it. Like we don't put anyone in touch with a customer unless they can talk to me proficiently on like
mm,
what's going on. So in saying that, we were able to get that 14 to 16 week time frame down to, um, I think Victor was the last person to do it. He had done it in 8 weeks. It was like 8 weeks and 2 days. And he had passed all of our competency training, all of our aircraft knowledge training, all the regulations training, and all the international handling training. All of that with a 90 or more, which is incredible. And the time that I had to spend with him individually was reduced. So I would spend on average 4.5 to 5 hours a week, roughly, with new training or new hires or their managers. And now my hourly dedication, literally 1 hour a week. We do a review every Friday of, hey, this is what we reviewed the week before. How did you implement it? Okay, this is what you learned this week. How are we going to implement it this following week? That's it. And it's this natural progression. And I think it's been really cool. So over the course of, not only are we getting well quality trained staff, um, it also helps filter people out too. That's another big thing that's worth mentioning, is that I've noticed that he's not the first person who has attempted or who has gone through this. I've had two other people since we've deployed this go through it, but fail out because they were not self-starters. They needed
Mm,
that direct management. And without having direct management there and you coordinating with an AI, like an AI system,
mm,
it's very easy to tell who is actually doing what should be doing to progress their, early stages quickly. So it's also kind of served in that respect too, right? Like if we avoided potentially having the wrong person on our team just one time, how much has that actually saved me in the long run? Not just me, but my
mm.
customers too.
Got you.
Yeah. So to answer your question, it increased efficiency by what is that? 35% increased efficiency and reduced overhead time frame by almost 70%
What tech actually moved the needle for margin in the last 12 months? Not hype, but real improvements.
per margin.
Mhm. What moved the needle for margin in the last 12 months? What tech?
You mean off of our net operating income, like our profitability?
Yeah, essentially. Yeah. What moved the needle? What tech in terms of
Oh,
how you progress in your business?
with technology. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't really look at AI or systems improvements as increasing um, you know, net profitability. I consider it more of like budget optimization so that we can spend more on advertising or either that or cross dump it into other capital expenses like our own FMS, which is our flight management systems, or there's or marketing or whatever it is that we, you know, can utilize cash for.
Mm,
I think the biggest thing that has come out in the last 12 months, I think is dude, as funny as it sounds, dude, just Nathan, like N8N and their development of nodes between LLMs, data banks, and your output parsers being able to pass things through to a second LLM for easily fast digested information and then sending that information to whatever team it needs to go to. That's freaking pardon my French, that's fucking nuts. Like
yeah.
that is absolutely insane. We have never seen it to where you can input information, any information, flight related or not, and it be digested, understood, logged into a database logically, and then issued to the correct department within like 95% accuracy. Like that's pretty incredible. So I think
What's
if there's anything,
what parts of NAN is in your business? Like what parts does it operate in?
we use
What
quite a
what?
bit. We use it in automated marketing workflows. We use it for content generation. We use it for automated sales tasks and scheduling. We don't do automated replies. No one of our customers talks to or speaks with or interacts with any piece of AI directly. Everything is all handled on the back end. And then we use it for data reporting.
Gotcha. Okay. Who's surviving and why? Was the lesson sequencing proof points, regulatory capital, customers instead of marketing first?
Say that one
What
more
big?
time, a little bit slower.
Okay. So big names in aviation startups. Who's surviving?
I really don't keep up a lot with the startups. I do keep up with the failures, and that's
Mm,
only because they blast out on the internet all the time. Like Volado was one of them, just recently that collapsed. But
yeah.
to answer your question, I don't know. But what I will say is that every single company that I've ever seen who tries to expand the TAM, the total addressable market,
Mm,
to a more accessible point, and that is a very polite way of saying they want people with less money to fly more. That does not bode well. It does not
I would,
work.
yeah.
We saw it with Jet Smarter, you see it with Volado, you saw it with Fly Exclusive is lucky they dodged a bullet last year.
Mhm.
You've seen it with a lot of these card carriers. Aerovanti was one of them. There's a ton of them. The examples are plentiful where people are like, oh, let's wheels up. That's a great one. I mean, it
Mhm.
really sucks. It really sucks, and I feel bad for a lot of those people. Well, there are some very smart people out there too. There are some very, very, very smart people who know exactly what they're signing up for, and their thought process is, I can get more than what I paid into it. Like if I can get more value than what I paid into it before this thing collapses, you win. And that's there's a lot of, again, there's people who fly private are very smart and they know what they're doing. So do I feel bad for all of them? No, because some of them totally got some awesome advantages. Good for you. And then other people who were probably less a little unwitting, um, definitely got screwed.
Yeah. Honeywell industry outlook shows hours and deliveries nudging up. What are you seeing in trip length, lead times, and routes?
Yeah, so with routing and BitLux statistic, it's a little unique just because of our customer demographic. It's a little bit difficult to I would not use BitLux data to position against the industry because it's very outlier data. We have
Hmm.
we have very, very large customer accounts who are all over the world, where a lot of private aviation companies, and I would assume that Honeywell specific data has a very heavy load on North America demand, and our data just is not there. Only less than half of it is in the United States. And in saying that, I think my total overall outlook, I do think utilization for private aviation is going up. I think memberships are probably going to start to go up as well. There's too many tax incentives to not be on a membership. I think it just kind of makes sense if you look at what your post-tax cost is versus your, pre-tax cost. And then, also forward year forward write-offs or depreciation if you're on fractional, it's kind of a no-brainer. And we're getting to a point now, under at least in the current administration, where I think people are going to be able to see significantly lower interest rates. You should be able to leverage that for capital and then use that capital for flying private. And that's usually kind of the way it goes, right? So is that you can if it, cheap money breeds easy spending, and easy spending increases the total amount of hours that you see get racked up on airplanes every year.
Where are the reoccurring frictions you love to automate? Quoting, crew aircraft matching, or recovery during IOPs?
Yeah, with we actually don't have any AI in any hardcore circumstances. Only because I don't trust it enough to do that yet, and there's a lot of things that are wrong with AI. Um, you're familiar with hallucination, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So for
54 was renowned for that. So,
Yes, yeah, exactly. And for anyone who may be listening, hallucination is basically where a model puts too much emphasis on a point of information that may not be relevant. And that is something that's rather dangerous, especially if you're dealing in aviation, just because it's a safety related thing. And then when you're working on a time crunch too, let's say that we've got an AOG out of Miami. I would If you have a human who can look at all of the live schedules of aircraft, they're going to be able to just by looking at a map, they can figure out exactly which ones are probably going to be landing in Miami soon that are already on charter certificate through an existing knowledge base. Whereas if you get something, like I couldn't imagine having GPT run through APIs from, you know, um, ADSB Exchange to figure out which airplanes are going to be flying south or towards Miami, and then subsequently filtering those out. I don't think it's advanced enough to do that. But a human could, I mean, it could, right? But how much data are you going to have to feed into it to test it? And then are you going to trust it when the time comes? Like, that's a huge thing. So would I rather have one of my industry trained experts be able to look at a computer screen in 30 seconds and identify 5 airplanes, or run everything through GPT that has and then what if it runs away with like this, oh, I need to focus on a Challenger 300, and you miss an airplane, what happens if, whatever it is, it doesn't account for where this plane came from. It wants to, there's a lot of things that you can set up, but you never know what these things are going to pick up on and stick to throughout. I'm having an issue with my personal GPT right now. It keeps
Mhm.
trying to relate everything to my business, and I'm like, no, I'm just wondering what kind of dog food is healthy. I don't care. It doesn't need to be on a plane.
Mhm. Regional cards like Fort Lauderdale, Boca list hour bands and inclusions. What usage patterns are you seeing?
You know, again, usage patterns with internal BitLux flights, I think is a little difficult. Right now, there's a lot of things going on with crypto, so we're seeing a lot of activity happen in the Middle East, which I think is really cool. I love it. I love seeing that. Eastern Europe, the Middle East is very busy right now. We're seeing decent activity happen in Canada. And then I will say it's been rather interesting dealing with Mexico lately
Mm,
because they have had quite a few things pop up about their permitting process and they want American operators to have blanket permits and go through this whole thing. So, um, seeing the geopolitical effects in private aviation as well as market pricing has been rather interesting, actually. And that's only it was a recent development that was in the last 2.5, 3 weeks, right?
mm.
So yeah, that's been interesting to watch. So to answer your question in terms of United States based flights, we have it's a little again, it's one-sided too, like because we just opened an office in Dallas, Texas, and you create a physical presence there. Like we've had more requests out of Dallas in the last 6 months than we have in the last 12 months, that's for sure.
Mm.
However, how much of that can be equated to having a physical presence in that city? There's a lot of things that can go on there. But with our existing customer base, it's been fairly consistent with the flying. What I have noticed is that the new domestic requests that we get have been shorter or in smaller budget. So like we have not been receiving a ton of new inquiries for longer trips or international trips out of the United States, which I find to be rather interesting. And I think that's because there's quite a bit of market uncertainty still. And I do think that there's economic driving factors that are causing the wealthier segment of the United States to be accumulating and not deploying any money, which, even my financial advisor is saying the same thing of like, we're at all-time highs. We need to be careful. There's a bunch of things that could be going on. And we all know everything's propped up on toothpicks anyway. So
What's your 24-month roadmap? Membership makes partners or fleet access you're willing to hit at.
yeah, so I think in the next, well, there's one product we're working on right now that I can't really discuss until we push it out in the news. It'll be really cool. I'm super excited for it. It's gonna be freaking awesome, dude. I'm excited to see what people do with it. And it's not even it's just an add-on to the Jet Card product that we have, but it's such a hardcore financial incentive that it should be really, really good for all of our customer base. In terms of the next 24 months, I am hoping, again, our Jet Card, program is brand new this year. We just launched it at the end of January. So we're still hammering out the sales process, understanding where to reach and communicate with our customers and potential customers and make sure that we get our brand positioning in the right way. So I would hope that within the next 18 months, we have some sort of reliable, repeatable, dependable, and scalable solution to this. Whereas, we can consistently reach the people that we need to reach and be able to offer a great incentives program for referral-based business. That's something else that's coming down the pipeline. And, a a self-service flight management app that's really a big thing of mine. I would, because for me, like I like using Uber. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to be the Uber of private aviation. I would never say those words because that's certain death. Every business that has gone bankrupt. But it would just be really nice if I could if it was me, I would want to add a trip, have my assistant go in, Iola could just add whatever she needed to on the dashboard, add passenger details, and be able to do everything inside of one particular place and share that information with other people relatively easily. So I think that's probably on my top non-revenue generating goals for the next 12 months. And then, of course, deployment, utilization, testing, back testing, and then improvement over the next subsequent 12 months. So, to answer your question, consistent, scalable marketing strategy and growth strategy, and having a customer-facing app along with one other product, or it's an addition to the product that we currently offer that is pretty sweet, dude. It's pretty sweet. You'll see. It's pretty cool.
Okay. To wrap this up, one KPI you want BitLux judged on in 2026 that isn't revenue.
There's one that I think is hard to track, and I would love to get it set up, but I would love to see our operations department does all indirect operating. So our ops manager, they will go get the permits for the airplane. They will work with the handlers. They will work with the authorities. They will do the customs paperwork. This is because a lot of operators don't know how to do this efficiently, or operators are busy working on five other trips, whereas our team can work on just one at a time, you know? I would love to see how many trips we've actually had to get our hands into. Out of all the international trips, I'd say that number is about 45%. And then I would want to see if we could get permit handling times down from whatever the average is. It's probably sitting at about 36 hours right now. I would
Mhm.
love to see that get under 30 so we can reliably have some sort of data that says, hey, very few people in the industry have been able to pull this off. You call someone else, they're going to tell you it's 48 hours. I have data to back it up that says, listen, I can get you from Turkey to Dubai and into Riyadh in under 30. And it's proven. That would be really, really cool.
All right. Well, this was Kyle Patel with BitLux president, and thank you guys all for watching. I'm gonna go ahead and end the recording.